Senator for Senate District 3, where we are right now, and we do these coffee hours usually twice a month. Today, obviously, we've got pizza instead of coffee, just as an opportunity to provide updates and then really hear from people in the district and to be able to hear what's going on, hear what things people are concerned about. And if you haven't yet, sign in so that we can keep you informed of upcoming events. So I'll share a few updates, but then really would actually, you know what, before I share updates, since we've got sort of a smaller group, maybe we can go around and do some introductions. Would you like to start, Barbara?
Sure. Hi, I'm Barbara Beasley, and I'm a Hamtramck, Detroit resident. I'm the border. I'm on the border.
Good afternoon. My name is Cicely Allen. I'm not from Hamtramck, but I'm from Detroit. I'm here to listen and learn.
Yes. Well, good afternoon. I'm LaTanya Bell. I'm with the Wisdom Institute, and I'm from South Hill, but I'm here in Hamtramck to listen and learn and to do simulational organizing.
Hi. I'm Gwen Winston. I'm with the Wisdom Institute, one of its advisors. Glad to be here with my friend.
Hi, I am Angela Pennerman, and I'm with the Wisdom Institute. I am the volunteer manager, so I am from Flint, Michigan.
Wonderful.
Hi, I'm Ken Thomas, but they call me Ken. You call me Ken, they call me Ken. Ken Thomas. Also like volunteering, and then I also work with study trade, and then I like to work out in community and stuff.
Great.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Bob Myosinski. I'm not from Hamtramck, but I'm right on the border in Detroit.
Wonderful.
I'm from him. I live in Hamtramck too.
Okay. Wonderful.
My name is Chang. I'm just looking for resources to take back to the community.
Yay! That is so great. Well, we've got some resources. Also, I think people in this room are also wonderful resources. A couple quick announcements, and then I'll do some updates. We've got a flyer over there with our upcoming events. So feel free to grab one of those. And then if you know anyone who's pregnant, or has a child under the age of 1, we've got a community baby shower next Saturday from 1 to 4 in Highland Park, and it's our community baby shower. We'll be giving away, diapers and diaper bags and bottles and all that stuff, and then also have some educational information about breastfeeding and car seat safety and some other things. So please feel free to take a bunch of flyers for that and share them. So those are a couple announcements. Also, just in terms of what we have been working on, we've been working on a lot. It's been a busy, busy year. But a couple things that I've been spending a lot of time on lately. Hello, welcome. A couple things that I've been spending a lot of time on lately one is around water affordability, and so you mentioned that earlier. So we actually have introduced legislation every term since I first got into office back in 2015. But this year we feel like we really have a great opportunity to actually get some good policy done to ensure that low-income residents across the entire state receive a water bill that they can afford. Because we know that there are a lot of families that are struggling out there, and with all the different things that people need to buy and pay for, the cost of everything going up, we know that whatever we can do to help lower costs for people is really, really critical, especially when it comes to things that you need literally to live. There is another example is that there's another package of bills related to expanding energy assistance, so to help with those energy bills that have been going up. But we are really focused in on water because we know that human beings need water to live. So we've introduced legislation that would essentially help low-income households. So if you're 200% of the federal poverty level or below, would make sure that you get a water bill that is not more than 3% of household income. So what does that mean? So for a family of 4, 200% of the federal poverty level is $60,000. So that just to give you a sense of what that looks like. And so we would help with paying down arrearages, plumbing repairs, because we know we've got, especially in our older cities, all these old homes with old pipes, leaky pipes, and we know that that's really critical. Hello! How are you? We just did a round of introductions, and then I started talking about water affordability.
Oh, perfect.
So I'll keep talking about that, and then you can share some updates.
Yes.
Okay. So 200% of the federal poverty level would receive a water bill that's not more than 3% of household income. The way this would all be funded is a very modest $2. Sorry about that. $2 per meter per month funding factor, which is very similar to what we already do for energy assistance. So right now we all pay a little bit under $1 to help low-income customers get assistance with their energy bills, and that was actually passed bipartisan support back in 2012, signed by Governor Rick Snyder. So we're hopeful that we can build some bipartisan support around water as well, because it's a very, very similar program. And so we are, and then another piece related, so there's the funding, and then the affordability program, and then the shutoff protections. And so both Representative Aiyash and I have legislation related to both of those things. The shutoff protections would help make sure that people are actually getting adequate notices about here's how to get into an affordability program, all with the goal of preventing that shutoff. Right. And then also for those who have critical care health needs, they would be completely prohibited from being shut off. So that's people who are on some type of medical device that needs water, or has some type of communicable disease or something like that. We would make sure that they're protected from shut off. So we've been making progress. We introduced these bills back in the fall, and then we had a couple hearings in the House and Senate, and so now we're really in the period where we need a lot of folks out there in the community who care about this issue to really let folks know that this should be a priority. So that we can build the support in the legislature to get it done. So that's one of the things I've been spending a lot of time on. One more recent piece of news from yesterday that I'll share before handing it over that's exciting is that there's a couple of us in the Senate, led by Senator Darren Camilleri, who has been leading this effort around state voting rights. So some of you might remember, I can't remember how many years ago, but the U.S. Supreme Court basically gutted the Federal Voting Rights Act, and states around the country have been just attacking voting rights. But in Michigan, we're trying to actually move forward with a state voting rights act. And so that would do a number of things, but those bills actually just got voted out of the Senate Elections Committee yesterday. And so I'm very excited about that. One of the bills that is in that package that I'm proud to be a sponsor on would actually help a lot of folks across the state with more access to translated election materials, to expand on what's in the Federal Voting Rights Act by really expanding who is eligible for these translated materials, and really giving the Secretary of State more authority to actually work with local clerks to do that. So, and then one other piece I'm really excited about that's a part of the Voting Rights Act is helping voters with disabilities. So I did not know this until recently, but there actually is a practice of being able to, you can actually drive up and drop off, actually, what is it? It's called curbside voting. So this actually is something that is already allowed, but we haven't put it into the law. So we're actually now going to put it into the law to say, if you're a person with a disability, you want to vote on election day, making it so that you can actually basically come to the curbside, someone will come out, you'll be able to vote. So that's really exciting. So those are a couple things from me. We'll hand it over to my friend and colleague.
Hey, good afternoon, everybody.
We're being broadcast.
We're being broadcast. Shout out to Hamtramck Public Library TV. So we're lucky, extremely lucky to have Senator Chang as our senator, and I'm glad to have her as a partner in doing some of this work around water affordability, around voting rights. I want to talk about what's taking over the conversation now in the House. So we have a July 1st deadline to get the budget done. And we are in the middle of negotiations. I think today is the first day that both Senate and House members just got their targets for how much money that they can spend to then divvy out the budget. So we're working hard to get some funding priorities for the city of Hamtramck here around infrastructure. So you guys have seen all the repairs, the roads, the alleys, the sidewalks. That is in large part, and the water pipes, in large part of the work that we were able to do over the last 2 budgets to bring money back to the district. So last year, Hamtramck received the largest infrastructure investment from the state in city history. And that was because the strong partnership I had with Senator Chang and delivering all those monies. Over $17 million was sent to Hamtramck. For context, Hamtramck's entire...
Representative Aiyash really led on that, and so...
No, it was a team effort. But
people know that.
Congratulations.
It was a team effort. I mean, it's really a win for us. Hamtramck's budget total is about $16 million. So we got more than what the whole city spends on its yearly operating budget for these infrastructure investments. And you're not going to see all of them happen in the next 2 years. There's a multi-year process. The biggest challenge we have in Hamtramck is on Kniff. There is a infrastructure underground that you could literally fit a D-dot bus through.
Yeah.
So it's a massive, massive pipe. And we are trying to connect that water main to one of the regional drainage systems, and that will hopefully alleviate 80% of the flooding that happens in people's basements in Hamtramck. The problem, I don't want to get even too hopeful, but we are moving towards that goal. The problem is it's $40 million just to fix that specific pipe alone. So we got the initial sort of down payment investment last year. I think it was $5 million. We are hoping that the rest of it will come from federal support and then continued state support to fix that. But if that particular water main is connected to the, and I'm not knowing all the technical phrases, so forgive me, but if we're able to connect it to the main drainage system, we are going to alleviate a lot of the backflow that causes the flooding in most homes in Hamtramck. I think what the city manager told me is about 80% of people in Hamtramck would be clear from that. So fingers crossed, we're going to keep moving towards that. But the big conversation that's happening now, and I know it's going to head to the Senate soon, is around this massive deal of over $600 million. It's going to be $6 billion over 10 years for housing, transit, and what people call economic development. I just call it corporate welfare. So there's a push right now to invest over $2 billion for corporate welfare. But the exchange is you'll get $2 billion invested in transit and then $1 billion invested in housing. Now, these are not final numbers. They're still being negotiated, but the idea there is we can finally start investing in a mass transit system in the city of Detroit, in the region. And the way they're talking about it, and everybody talks about rail, the truth is we're never going to get somewhere where we can actually get to rail. I don't want to say never, I'm sorry, I don't want to be a pessimist, but the build out of Detroit's infrastructure, given how old it is, to do rail, whether it's a subway or above ground rail system, the costs are so astronomical that there doesn't seem to be a viable pathway as it stands now. So the alternative that we're looking at is called BRT or RBT, Rapid Bus Transit. So the fix would be you create dedicated lanes for buses. You have elevated platforms for people to just sort of walk on, and it would be a lane dedicated for buses. Cars can't get in there. So and it would be timed where the traffic lights and all this. There's a lot of planning that goes into it, but it would create a public transit system that can get people from downtown to Hamtramck to Highland Park to Birmingham, or Hamtramck to Sterling Heights, or Hamtramck to Ann Arbor. that would be, we're lucky geographically. Hamtramck is sort of centralized in that way because we're right between Woodward. We have south of us, a little farther down, you have Mack, and then right above Hamtramck you have 7-8 Mile. So we have all the main roads that sort of corner Hamtramck into a good position. So we would benefit tremendously from a public transit system for a lot of people. We're still in the negotiations for that, but we are moving the needle on that issue. One thing that we were able to get signed into law, did you mention the asbestos?
I did not.
Okay. So Senator Chang's been working on this for a while. I jumped on the last minute, but we have legislation around asbestos safety. So as you all know, when people demolish homes or people want to retrofit their homes or, you know, do renovations, we have a lot of 100-plus-year-old houses in Hamtramck. And a lot of these houses have asbestos in them. And asbestos is like this white sort of particle-looking material that once you demolish something, if it gets in the air and people breathe it, it's very, very dangerous. If you watch TV, you guys have heard of those commercials. If you have mesothelioma, call J.G. Wentworth. Mesothelioma is a cancer caused by asbestos. So we have established the Asbestos Inspection Fund and increased asbestos notification so that before someone is going to demolish a home or do a renovation or a commercial property, they have to inform the state that they're going to do it. They have to pay a fee. The inspector will come, check if there is high levels of asbestos in that home, and then if they do, there's a certain way to contain the asbestos when you're doing the demolition. Because if you just break down a wall and it spreads in the air, you know, you have a senior citizen that breathes it or a child that breathes it, they get cancer. And it's a very, you know, it's a very deadly cancer. Lung cancer is not fun. It's hard to treat, and the impacts are very, very severe. So that's like one way that the governor just signed this into law. I think we tried last year to get it done. It didn't get done. Or last term. So for the last 3 terms. So this is, we're in the 102nd legislature. We've been trying to do this since the 100th legislature. So it took 6 years to finally get it over the finish line, but thankfully we're able to, that is now law. The governor has signed it. So as Detroit demolishes homes for renovation, the asbestos is not going to go in the air, fingers crossed. And we're also working on introducing the legislation around cumulative impact, so the public health danger around these facilities. U.S. ecology, we all know the incinerator used to be an issue, that's been shut down, but I know folks have been complaining about Lear Corporation and the Max Stellantis plant down further east, but the paint fumes certainly end up in our community, so we're looking at ways to deal with that. I know there was a scare this past week. I believe on Tuesday I got a call about gas smell in the city of Hamtramck. There was initial thoughts could have been Sterling Oil just up the road, but we're hearing that there was some sort of leak from Grand Rapids. Huh? That's, yeah. Wow. So we're still trying to figure out what was the cause of the smell. Yeah, all the way from Grand Rapids. So I don't know the exact term, but there's a special type of system where I guess there was a leak in Kent County that came all the way east to Detroit is a potential.
That's really scary.
Yeah.
I didn't hear about that. Okay.
So I don't know if you guys have heard anything, if you guys smelled anything, or if you smell anything this week, the first thing I would say is contact our office immediately. We want the more reporting that we get with the Department of Environment, Great Lakes, and Energy, the better we're able to then use this issue to figure out the concern.
Also, call the PEAS hotline.
Yes. I don't know it off the top of my head.
Well, I have it saved because I never remember what it is.
Okay. So you guys should probably write this number down. If you smell something, you just call them and say, hey, we smell an odor. Here's what it is. So it's giving them that description so they can report it. And then I'll talk about the MyChem program in a second.
They track the calls that come into this hotline. So PEAS stands for Pollution Emergency Alert System. Yeah. It's 1-800-292-4706. So 1-800-292-4706. And this goes, it's a 24-hour hotline. If no one picks up, just leave a voicemail. But it goes to the Department of Environment, Great Lakes, and Energy. And so I know that they track the numbers of calls because that has helped to be able to push certain violation issues. But you can call it both for odor issues or other air quality issues, or also water. So just really anything. If you ever experience something in your neighborhood or out in the community where something concerning is going on with the environment, please call that hotline. Because if it never gets reported, then Eagle will have no record of community experiencing it. So that's really scary.
Yeah. So to that point, I want to just talk about MyChem. Which basically will collect data. So it's called the Michigan Chemical Exposure Monitoring Program. So right now, the state is studying certain types of chemical exposures. There's 197 different types of chemical exposures. So what they do is they test blood, they test soil, they test water to see how bad the contamination is across a particular community. So they've been collecting data over the last 2 years, so between 2022 and 2024, to figure out what the level of exposure is in communities like ours. So in our district, which is the 9th House District, which includes east side of Detroit, the best way to describe it, it goes from Outer Drive to 75, Mack to McNichols. That's like the general area of our district, which Hamtramck is squarely in. We have about 3 square miles of areas that they've identified as high exposure areas that they're testing. We're in the process of working to try to get more coverage for our district so that they're testing other areas in Hamtramck and Detroit. And the argument that we're trying to make with Eagle and it's MDHHS, Michigan Department of Health and Human Services, is that we are surrounded by a lot of areas that emit a lot of pollution. And it's not just smokestacks. When people think of pollution, they think of like smoke in the air. But that's not always going to be the type of pollution that people have. Sometimes it's odorless fumes. Sometimes it's colorless fumes, and people don't really see it. It's the contamination that comes from all the scrap yards, because when people bring a car to the scrap yard and they crush it, a lot of times these companies are not, or these junkyards are not cleaning out the oil, the gas. Well, they clean out the gas, but the oil, the coolant, the antifreeze. And y'all know that joke about when you go to a AutoZone parking lot, you see like a rainbow river because of all these chemicals sort of just flowing through. That goes in your sewage system, and that contaminates your water system too. So there's other ways that we get pollution that's not simply smokestacks that are just emitting gray and black smoke into the sky for people to breathe in. So we're looking at increasing Hamtramck and Detroit's qualifications for the MyChem program. So 3 square miles in the whole district is what they cover now. We're trying to increase that testing area, because the more that they test, the more that they'll find out there's more contaminants. We can then say there needs to be more support to try to figure this out. So I want to stop there for 1 second. I just want to get a general sense from all of you, Senator Chang, if it's okay with you, just to hear what's on your guys' minds or any questions you might have for us. I don't want to just talk at you all the whole time. So yeah, feel free. Tell us your name.
My name is Chang, and my concern is like regarding like DTE and its upcharge of the 25% between peak hours of 37. So like it's between the hours of 37, and it's normally when children are home from school, you have to have homework, you're getting off work, you're cooking dinner. And then it's also the time I see when DTE is mostly out doing all of this work. When they're doing all of the repairs, and they're telling us that, well, we have increased it, it's because that's when the majority of people are using most of the energy.
Yeah.
Well, you are included in the majority of the people, because why are you not using repairing when children are at school? Because it's also interfering with a lot of traffic and getting around, because they're literally doing it when you're trying to get home from work, picking up your kids, so it's interfering with a lot. But also, where is this money going? And then you mentioned how water is also a human right, basically, in so many words, and it's inhumane for people not to have access to water. So we don't have solar panels on every home. It's also inhumane not to have electricity or hot water. So if people are having increase in DTE bills, and I'm talking about astronomical. I live in a home where it's 3 bedrooms, and it's just me and 2 other people.
Mm.
And I have sent the increase in my DTE bill alone to $250 to $350 a month. Next week it's going to be almost 100 degrees, so it's like you can't even turn off your air, so it has to run 24 hours a day. So it's just like people that don't work, that are on fixed income, how is that fair to them? You know, people, you know, that have to help and assist with their grandchildren, you know, that don't have supplement income. So what are we going to do about this? Because it was voted in, you know, just like the Chrysler layoff, you know, the Chrysler was on strike, and then when they got their new contract, it was voted in that people would be laid off on these dates and these times, and who wouldn't be able to work. It was all part of the plan once they got their new contract. But no one cared about these other people losing their jobs. It was just like, you know, we just want to go back to work. But when it was time for the people to get laid off and the union pulled up and said, hey, well, these people were, it was agreed upon that they would be laid off. So it's like, what are we going to do about DTE? And now we have different agents come and say, oh, well, we can give it to you for cheaper. Well, why should anyone have to give it to us for cheaper when DTE and consumer energy is the main source of energy?
Yeah.
So one real quick thing just on the assistance, and then you've been working on this for a long time. Just in terms of the assistance, if you are working with, if you are in touch with low-income families, that there are actually a lot of programs that are available, but we know that they're being underutilized because people don't know about them, or sometimes it's really confusing. But there's the MEP program, like I mentioned earlier, the Michigan Energy Assistance Program exists that will help low-income customers with their energy bill, and then there's also.
But everyone's not low income. Like I'm not low income.
Right. I know you had mentioned some low income. So if you do know people,
you have to be 200% under poverty.
Right.
That means like I'm homeless. I'm a homeless veteran at this point.
Okay, I guess I was just trying to say, if you know folks, make sure that they know about the program, because people are actually under. There's a lot of people who are eligible that aren't.
Under poverty, that's like extreme poverty. That's like feed the children at this point. You know, I'm just saying that we just got to be honest. That's like going to New Orleans and living below water. You know, to meet some of those low income requirements, you have to be. It's extreme.
It's almost it's incredibly. I mean.
Yes.
One
more thing to add.
Yeah, please.
And so it's just like, to think of this. Fairlane has a bill of $17 million. But then you have people that's next door to you who DTE bill is cut off for $500.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just like making, the math is not it's not adding up. And it's just like, how do they get to owe DTE $17 million?
Right.
And then the person next door to you, a single mom of 4, who's literally going to work, you see her working hard, she's at the food pantry, and she's calling, and, well, ma'am, you're only at 190% of poverty. So if you just get to 200%, we'll be able to help you.
You're too rich to be poor and too poor to be okay. It makes sense.
When you have when a social class is the working poor, I mean, that's just the same to me.
So 100, I mean, here's the, first of all, let me just say this. If anyone comes to you and says they can offer you lower energy rates, they're lying. And I'll tell you, we have a monopoly in Michigan. You don't get a choice of who your electric provider and gas provider is. Your utility is DTE or consumers, depending on where you live. But in our region, it's only DTE. So anyone that'll come tell you, they might even try to come pull an okie doke and give you a fake name and say we're consumers efficiency. So they'll try to just change the name a little bit.
They're in Costco and Sam's Club.
Right. So I would just say, as a general principle, and I especially caution if you have seniors in your community, because they are the ones that feel the pain the most, because a lot of them are on fixed income. If anyone promises them they can lower their rates if they change providers or there's a subsidiary, that is a bold-faced lie. And report them to the Attorney General's Consumer Protections Division. And there's going to be some books over here that you can get that number from. But that's just the first point. I want to open with that just to make sure nobody gets pulled into a gimmick, because it's been really hurtful to see people that go towards this because they want to see a lowering of their rates, and then they get screwed with what they're paying moving forward. So that's the first piece. Everything you said is valid, and I just want to be honest about where things are with DTE. They are one of the largest, they're top 3 in companies and lobby groups that spend money in Lansing.
Correct.
So I'm not going to tell you, I'm not going to accuse any of my colleagues of being bought and sold. That's up to the public to decide. What I can tell you is what we've done, and I'll only speak to the work that we have been extremely vocal on addressing this issue. DTE is the bane of my existence. And I don't care if this is recorded. I'm glad it's recorded.
They're asking for another rate hike.
They're
so
asking
you've got an opportunity for people to actually weigh in right now.
So I'm gonna give you the numbers right now about what DTE is asking for. Just so we have context.
It's just fair. I thought by 2025, 25% of all energy is supposed to be renewable.
Right.
And solar.
I think it's $450 million, right, is what they're trying to, the overall, I don't know what that looks like.
So DTE just requested 450, so 4 months ago, this was back in March, so in December of last year, so your rates only go up if the Michigan Public Service Commission, which is the regulating body of these monopolies, so this is how it works. Your rates can go up because DTE says so. That's what you're told. I'm gonna just lay it out. So
I know how it works.
So the Michigan Public Service Commission is a 3-member body appointed by the governor, 3 people. This is just the regulatory structure of the utilities in Michigan. So energy is regulated by this system. These 3 people are appointed. It's a full-time job. They have to like look at it as consider them like judges. They are judges before the public on anything related to energy. So DTE and consumers, by law, are guaranteed a profit. Right? That's just, they will never, so anytime DTE will tell you we're going to lose money, it's just simply not true. They are always guaranteed a profit based on the laws that they helped write. Right? So that's the first thing you got to answer. Anytime they want a rate increase, this is the process. They will submit a proposal to the Michigan Public Service Commission. So it's almost like their lawyers go to these energy judges and say, we need to increase the rates. Here's why we have to increase the rates. We need to increase the rates $500 million across the whole state. So each resident will pay an extra $20 a month or $50 a year. They break it down. And they say, we need this money for X, Y, and Z. We got to cut trees. We got to bury the lines. We have to, what they call hardening the grid, which is making it more firm against severe weather. The problem with that system is, in that case, and we've had a great attorney general on this, Dana Nessel, every time they come up to this court and say we want to increase the rates, there's called an intervention. So you can intervene, AKA, I'm going to just use plain speak, you can sue and ask for that not to happen. Now every time they have this, so they'll come and say we want X amount of millions of dollars increase, it goes through court, and again I'm using these as just expressions just to explain, they're not legal terms. They go to court, they deliberate, then the Public Service Commission will say we're going to increase the rates, so you ask for $600 million, we're going to approve an increase of $300 million, right? And that's after the Attorney General will intervene, AKA sue. That's after the public can come in and say, these are our rates, this is the problem, so on and so forth. Here's where the problem lies from a law perspective. Lawmakers have this issue. There is nothing in Michigan law that requires them to use that money explicitly for the thing that they promised to use it for. And there is nothing, that's part one. And there is nothing in the law that says if you don't meet that commitment, you owe the money back to your residents, to your customers. So we have been fighting for a long time to make a clawback provision for residents if they don't meet the requirement, and to allocate 100% of the monies that they ask for, because they'll say we're going to use this much for this, we're going to use this much for that, but they can end up divvying it up. So if they're asking, say, for a $400 million increase, they're not spending all $400 million to actually fix the problem that they claim they're fixing. They split it up. They say, okay, we're going to use 120 for the tree cutting, tree trimming, we're going to use 120 for this, and then there's like administrative costs, so on and so forth.
But it's just like now they're saying that they're fixing the infrastructure of the streets. but that's what they're telling me. So when I see people, whenever I see DTE, I pull up. I said, what you guys doing? You guys been out here for 24 hours.
So I will say, you know, one of the, I actually am, I know it's annoying to deal with, but whenever, if, I don't know what's happening in your specific street, but in my view, when DTE is putting the lines underground, that is actually a very good thing.
Yes.
Because a lot of the power outages that have happened are because of wind, and then we've got all these above ground lines that then like the trees get. I'm just trying to so I'm just letting you know that like when that's happening. Just like I know it's annoying to deal with, and yes, it costs money, and so it's like a little bit of a juggling thing, right? Like I don't want the rates to go up. We will probably both submit, I'm sure, like submit, you know, opposition to MPSC to the rate increase, but at the same time, they also like we also should be telling them like you need to prioritize neighborhoods who are who have been disproportionately impacted by the outages, because there is this great map that, well, it was actually very startling. There's a group called We the People, Michigan, who put together a map of like where DT has been doing, prioritizing their infrastructure work. It's fascinating. So like,
no, you're right.
I'm not telling you things that I'm not researching, but my thing is that when I go to DTE, I know what they're doing. I know why they're doing it. But when I go up to the workers and I say, what are you guys doing? And they can't tell me, that's a problem for me.
Sure.
Because I know what you're doing, but when I ask you and you can't constructively tell me, that's a problem because you've been out here for 24
I don't
hours.
want to interrupt, but we do have to start wrapping up. It is
okay.
1 o'clock,
so that's more of the issue is that the workers don't even know what they're doing. You know, they just been out here instead of saying, hi, we're putting new lines down.
So it's, I'll say this final point on that. I know they are the ones that are on the front lines, right? So like, it's almost like when people got mad during COVID, they took it out on the nurses when the hospital administrators were making all the decisions. Very similarly here, the line workers and the people doing the jobs, they're being given a task that they have to complete as a part of their job. The decisions that are being made, and I appreciate the fact that you actually are being aware of this. Here's where it becomes difficult for us. People complain to us as lawmakers, and you should. But unless, and I hate to say this because it sounds like a cop-out, but unless you are reporting this to the Public Service Commission, their court, we can't do anything with the Public Service Commission except, so Stephanie and I as citizens will submit complaints. Now, is it because we have state rep or state senator in front of our name, they're gonna look at our public comment? I'm sure they will. I'm not gonna pretend like that's not real. But the best thing you can do is when we hear about these cases, the rate case increases, you should do your absolute best to submit a public comment to say, I have lived here for this long. This is how much my rate has increased. And here are the number of outages that I've experienced, so on and so forth. Because then that can be used against DTE in that court case. So
there's, sorry, there's a bunch of other people here. So but real quick, the phone number for the MPSC complaint hotline is 1-800. I gotta save all these numbers on my phone. It's 1-800-292-9555. And if you sign in, Omar, let's send a follow up with these phone numbers, and then also there's a link on the MPSC website, which really should be made more simple. But there's a website where you can actually submit your comments on the DTE rate case.
1-800-992. 292.
9555.
So
955.
Yeah, 9555. So 9 and then 3 5s.
And
so 292-9555. That's that 1-800 number.
I just had a quick question. Because I know you talked about the water affordability bill, and I heard you talk about the critical care water shutoff protection. Okay, and I'll just say I don't think anybody's water should be cut off for any reason, but I was wondering if households with, mothers that just have babies, or if there's infants, if they're protected under that critical care shutoff.
So they are not. They were in the original version that I had introduced in previous terms. This term, basically what we did is we had a work group that included the water providers, water advocates, DHHS, and a lot of different stakeholders to come up with what folks could just generally like come to an agreement on. And so we had originally a very expansive list of folks that we wanted to cover for shutoff protections, and what we ended with is what we have. I do think that, I mean, there's going to be some overlap, right? If some moms might actually qualify under critical care depending on what their health conditions are. But the hope really, honestly, with the whole set of bills is to just never get to the point of shutoff, because we're trying to get people into the low-income water affordability program so that they don't get shut off. So the shutoff piece of legislation is there as like the final backstop. Yeah. But everything else in this package is designed to just prevent us from getting to that point in the beginning.
And even at that, like that, for that bill, at one point, was it 17 steps before they shut off the water?
There
like
were a lot of steps.
So
there were a lot, but yeah,
it was written in a way where basically shutting off someone's water becomes improbable, because if they can't afford it, like there's a multi-steps. So you got to go talk to them. You got to knock on the door. You have to make physical contact. You have to tell them, you have to try to get them on an assistance plan, a payment plan. If they have a water hopefully if we pass both of them at the same time, if it's an income issue, you can have a water affordability piece, and they sign up for the program. So it's designed where by the time a situation requires a water shutoff, there have been so many attempts to prevent that it just doesn't seem like it will probably happen. And that's like the whole point of calling it the shutoff protection, is we don't think we can, if both of them pass together, and they're all tie-barred, which means like they're connected. One, you can't pass one without the other. You're not going to have a situation where people would get shutoffs if there's a water affordability plan in place.
I will say that having worked on this issue for like 10 years, we are the furthest that we've ever been in terms of actually getting something to the finish line, and we still have quite a ways to go. But there are 290,000 households across the state of Michigan that could benefit from this, and it's definitely not a perfect solution, but it is something that will drastically change the lives of hundreds of thousands of people. So we've been trying to really move forward with this package that has just broad buy-in from big utilities, little utilities, water advocates, etc. And it was a lot of give and take in the negotiation process over a year, and so we're excited about it.
Yeah.
We are over time.
Yes.
Folks should feel free to eat more pizza. And is there more pizza?
Yes.
Okay.
Plenty of pizza left.
And also come to our future events. Please sign in if you didn't already. We'll make sure from both of our offices to follow up and send you all the stuff on DTE and other things.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you for coming.
Yeah.
So I just had a question.